Today we have a very special podcast episode. I'm with my friend and colleague Hayes Griffin, and we are actually recording this podcast episode in my car. We are on our way back from attending the Grenna Bluegrass Festival in Sweden, where we also hosted 3 days of bluegrass workshops in guitar and mandolin. And in this episode, we're actually covering a little bit what happened during this week, what we taught at the workshops, and we're going to give you some really good tips for how you can play better bluegrass breaks. Take your solos in a better way, so you're up for a treat here. Also, I would like to mention, as I said, we recorded this one in the car. That also means we had a little problem with the audio when recording this, and therefore we're actually using the audio from our cell phone. So the audio quality is not the best in this episode, and if that is bothering you, I suggest you turn it off and go to any of our other podcast episodes, because normally we're really keeping a high quality production of our stuff. But still, I think it's a very valuable conversation, and therefore we choose to publish this anyway, despite the sound quality. So my apologies for that, but hope you can still find it useful. Also, with this said, you know that we do include a video version of this podcast episode inside Mandolin Secrets Academy. And I think watching the video version, you will get even more out of it, seeing us driving around there in the middle of Sweden. Enjoy this one. Here we go. Hey there, music makers. I'm Magnus and welcome to the Mandolin Secrets podcast. This is the place to get tips, inspiration, and stories that supports you on your musical journey. Thank you so much for tuning in, and just know you can go to mandolinsecrets.com/podcast for more information on how to keep up with the show and also find all previous episodes. Now, let's get this episode rolling.
All right. Boo-doo-dee-doo-dee, boo-doo-dee-boo, boo-boo.
All right. Hello there, all podcast listeners. We are here for a very special episode today. I'm Magnus and with me here today, I got
Hayes Griffin.
Yes, and we are in the car. It's the middle of August. We are heading back from attending a Bluegrass festival in the middle of Sweden. It was almost south of Sweden. Yeah. Grenna Bluegrass Festival. And how are you doing, Hayes?
I have had the most magical 2 weeks of my entire life, and I am sad that it is over. That's how I'm doing.
Yes. So we're kind of wrapping things up because we're now heading towards the airport. Basically, that's where I'm going to drop you off this evening. But we had so much fun in the last 2 weeks.
How are we going to fit it all into one podcast episode?
Yeah, I guess. But one thing that I'm really interested in, could you, also for the community, I think they will be interested to hear, tell us a little bit about the workshops you did here in Grenna.
Yeah, so in case you folks don't know, Grenna Bluegrass Festival has been going since 1978, and it's been a kind of a fixture of Sweden's bluegrass scene for that entire time. Like one of the main festivals in not just Sweden, but Europe probably.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, they added an academy portion to it, right? A couple of days ahead of the camp where musicians from Sweden and really all over can come and study with folks like me, Magnus, and our buddy Magnus Vik on the banjo and Ondra Kozak on the fiddle. But yeah, it was an amazing 3-day workshop. We had classes from, 10 in the morning to about 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
What I really loved about it, you start to see this at a lot of camps that I've taught at this summer, that in addition to just instrumental classes, individual instruments, where it's like, how do you get a good bluegrass rhythm guitar sound, or how do you approach leads? We come together in the afternoon and put everyone from the individual instrument classes into bands, essentially. Yes. And then they all perform a song for one another.
Yeah.
So it was really great and really cool to kind of see the energy and the enthusiasm of everyone here. I've never felt more welcomed by a group of people, I don't think.
Yeah. I can just kind of agree on what you all said. It's been really fun meeting these people, and also having a chance for us to play with the other instructors.
Yeah.
But there was also some bass and singing kind of touched the workshop part-time from a player called Peter Cedar.
Yeah.
The Swedish guy. But I sort of, how would you kind of describe the level of the participants at this camp?
Yeah, in my classes specifically, it was like everything from like a rank beginner all the way up to a player who had been playing bluegrass, or at least adjacent styles, for over 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, so it was kind of like the widespread. But I'll say that just like most workshops that I teach, the majority of the people were like right somewhere in the middle. That kind of like,
yeah.
I call it I just released a YouTube video on this a while ago called, jumping off of the intermediate plateau, and a lot of people were there, some of them have good rhythm skills, but couldn't play leads or vice versa,
Yeah.
So most of the people I would say were like in that kind of realm. What about like your classes?
It's exactly the same. I would say some of them have like big experience playing in ensemble even, like are in a band, played a lot of bluegrass, and some player were more, starting out sort of. So, and I guess also my point here, talking about this is, I think it's almost reflects our online community in a good way. Like there is this range of, and we're, and it is a challenge hosting a workshop for players like it's even a bit challenging making content for an audience like this for a big spectrum. But I think there's again, I feel it's sort of, it's the same things that we somehow are dealing with and a challenge by practicing wherever we are in our journey in a way.
Yes.
And I think that's also so cool with the bluegrass music, because, I mean, basically, we're playing the same repertoire, whatever stage we're in. I mean, even like listening to the hero musicians, playing the same songs, but on their level, and now teaching to some true beginners, it's the same, same repertoire, and I think that's also what kind of makes this, the bluegrass community so, and even folk, but so including. And,
yeah, there's a spot for everyone, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
And I think I experienced that in my workshops for sure, because like I said, the rank beginner in my class, he was very concerned about rhythm skills. You know what I mean? And playing good rhythm, and all the other guys were very encouraging to that. And when I was teaching to him specifically, even some of the advanced guys were like, wow, I've never thought about that one thing you were talking about. So even though you're talking about stuff at all levels, everyone has something to learn from it, right?
Yeah.
We can all go back to the fundamentals.
Yes. And what if you're being even more specific, can you name a couple of things that you were giving these people that also valuable for listeners here?
Yeah, the main thing that we talked about was like how to play good bluegrass rhythm, and that means a lot of different things, but essentially we're talking about getting away from the boom chuck, the strict boom chuck rhythm. Because almost everyone in the class, even the higher level guys, had some comment about this, like, my bluegrass rhythm doesn't sound like Tony Rice, or doesn't sound like Brian Sutton, because every tutorial I look at, and I'm guilty of this in my tutorials.
Yeah.
It's like, just stick with a bass drum rhythm, you know?
Yes.
And I think that's a great foundation, but I feel where these guys were coming from. So what I was teaching them was how to, add what I like to call punctuation marks to the bluegrass rhythm. As a bluegrass guitar player, you're really there to show the form of the music and highlight where we are in the, 8 or 16 bar form of the music.
Yes.
So there's this thing that I call the crash at the top of a form. So if you're counting in a 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's like this kind of strong one beat.
Yeah.
And then
the difference, that bar from the other bars.
Yeah, and it kind of marks the top of the form.
Yes.
You only do that at the beginning of the 8 bars,
Yeah.
And then in the after bar 4, you do what I call the short G run, where instead of boo-da-ba-doo-ba-dee-ba-dee, you just do doo-ba-dee at the end. I almost think about it like a comma, like separating or like connecting 2 parts of the sentence. Yeah. And then at the end of the form, you put the full G run to kind of say like, that's either your period or your exclamation mark or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that turned on a few light bulbs for these guys. And then, obviously we talked about how to add syncopation and some of these weird like Tony Rice chord inversions and stuff. But really the kind of structure of the bluegrass grammar, I guess you would say, was what we focused on.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I want to learn everything about that.
Yeah. Well, let's hit pause. No.
Yeah. And Hayes says hit pause. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but also people that are watching the video version of this podcast will clearly see we're actually in a car. So if there's some noise here, it's, that's because it's
musicians in cars with no coffee.
Yeah. And so we've been also like really for the mandolin students going back to some working on basic stuff. And one thing that's really hit home or that I brought up there was also I really encourage people to working with a metronome.
Yeah.
Since this is such a metric music and also the fact that all of us, myself included, are always challenged by the speed of bluegrass music.
Mm-hmm.
And not only can a metronome help us to improve the timing, but it also let us measure tempos.
Yes.
So that we can be really specific. I want to play this tune at 120 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm going to play it fast, I'm going to play it slow. No, it's, and also, there are like, nuances raising from 120 to 140, 150 even, and even this fact, we talked a lot about measuring tempos, even talking about tempos. 120 means something for someone, and this thing we can even call it like 240.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, we were kind of demystifying that thing because they were, some of them were confused.
Half note equals 120 versus quarter note equals 240.
Exactly.
All that.
All that. But also, giving them some tools for how to actually use the metronome in their practice. And,
what were some of those tools like?
First thing that I gave them is skip the fancy metronome thing where using subdivision, using phrasing, like you can set a time stamp.
Yeah.
Basically to a metronome, like gig, go, gig, go, making it like a 4/4, or you can make it a 3/4 gig, go, gig, go, that kind of accents to it and all that. And I said, well, when we were doing this, set it to strictly like clicking beat like this, no accents whatsoever. The accents, the phrasing, that kind of thing, we kind of let our inner metronome take care of in a way.
Yeah.
So that also, like, at least for me, that will free up a little bit of creativity using a metronome, because it's not so stiff and strict.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I kind of, and then explained, of course, how to, well, actually, hands-on, starting the metronome, how do we get into it, and what is the benefits of doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, if you want to, like, speed things up, basically the idea of practicing things both slow and at fast tempos, and how to do it with a metronome.
Yeah.
So,
great stuff. I mean, that's, yeah, you're doing God's work, Magnus.
No, I think, I mean, I have the feeling participants now, some of them haven't, like, used it,
Mm-hmm.
and just the fact, just getting a habit of using that can make a really big difference to strengthening the inner clock, sort of, and that is so important for music in general, but especially for bluegrass music, I would say.
100%. If that groove isn't there, then it all falls apart. We've all been in a jam session where we've thought to ourselves that some folks around us could use a little more metronome time, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
But only like one thing. And then we would also, I think also the main theme of my teaching there was keeping things simple in terms of, like, doing the mandolin breaks and all that.
Yes.
It's tempting to go for this, like, flashy lick, the kind of seeing what many of our bluegrass heroes are playing.
Yeah.
But missing the point of actually playing the tune or the song that we are presenting. So how can we actually, that should be our first focus, I believe, playing the actual song that is being played.
Yes.
We could, of course, introduce, like, flashy things to it, hero licks and all that, but starting in that end will kind of get us off track.
Of course. I mean, I think that was even half of the discussion in my guitar class, was how a lot of the guys had, they get on YouTube.
Yeah.
They look at a 10 bluegrass licks you have to know video, which, like, all of us are guilty of making as content creators and stuff like that. But like you're saying, the point is that you should have that solid foundation of being able to play the melody.
Yeah.
We worked on that for 2 days in my class. It was so funny, like, sitting there, because I think you did the same thing. I didn't give my guys tabs until the second day.
Yeah.
And they hated that.
We've got a Max restaurant, by the way.
Mox Burger. It's happening today, man.
It's gonna be our lunch stuff. Sorry.
No, it's all good, man. We've gotta get a plug in for Max. Maybe they'll sponsor the podcast.
Magnus and Secrets podcast, brought to you by Max.
But yeah, I think it was really telling how my guys had learned the guitar, or at least bluegrass guitar.
Mm-hmm.
When I asked them, I was like, okay, we're going to sit here. I'm going to play rhythm for you and hum the tune to this song. And you're going to sing with me. And they were like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, they kind of looked at me like, is this guy crazy? Like, what kind of workshop did I sign up for here?
Yeah.
But 2 hours later, they saw the value of it, because that tune, you couldn't get it out of your head.
Yeah.
You sing the tune. It's so easy. Like, I told them I was like, as guitar players, most of us learn the pentatonic scale at some point in our career. That melody's, like, mostly in there. So if you know that shape, you can kind of just stick to those notes and find a few around it.
Yeah. Funny, we weren't synchronized in this, but I did the same. I started also letting them sing this one out, and I really think they could see the value of it.
Yeah, it's I even had one, I think I can name drop him here, Johan Yorm. in my class, he was like, I never thought to play the melody.
No.
Right? But it's like, I'm not even making fun or anything like that. It's not obvious that that's what you should do, because all of our heroes, they don't just sit there and play the melody, you know?
And they have sort of taken things to a new level where they can sort of bring out the melody with
some licks or some characters.
And I guess it's like an developed kind of melody.
Yeah.
But of course also, so, and this is something actually we talked about also about bluegrass playing soloing, that so I see like two main approaches. Either one is approaching like that melodic kind of way to it, like we're talking about now, knowing how to sing the melody and work it from it. Or, of course, another approach is more like playing over the chord changes in a way. But just like this guy you mentioned, so many forget about the melodic approach, which should be the starting point.
Yes.
In my opinion.
And man, I'm so with you. And I just want to apologize to all of my professors and teachers back in the day, because that's like, I feel like I've heard that my entire bluegrass career is like, play the melody. And maybe it wasn't always presented in the nicest way. That's what I should do.
Yeah.
But it's so true to lay that foundation. And it's so easy when you think about it at first. Like, it's such an easy way into the tune, folks. Cause then, like, I know you're taking this approach now where the melody is kind of like the meat of the sandwich. And then the pieces of bread, if we're going to use that analogy, would be like your intro phrase and then like an outro phrase.
Yeah.
So like, to me, that's where the improvisation or the kind of lick based playing starts to come into it. You get that melody down, but then you start the solo with ba-ba-da-da-ba-ba, you know, and then end it with dee-dee-ba-doo-ba-doom, you know, or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, we've been having a lot of great moments for jamming the last couple of days. And not to go in all details, but something that we also, since this has been like on top of our mind now, since we're also teaching, like how do people approach taking their breaks, sort of, since we've been teaching about it. And we've been it's been remarkable how, because we played with all level of musicians, but also some really, like, people that really think they have their shit together, sort of. If I put it like that.
Absolutely.
Yes, but then when it's time to take their break, it's kind of, they're trying to play impressive things.
Yeah.
But they are really missing out on making it something nice on this song. That way everyone is here like playing the same song, but this person just goes into kind of, and it's sort of, so I guess it's a trap easy to fall into, but it's nice seeing how this all like actually comes into to play when we're actually being there jamming. I mean, using another example from the other end, we played this week with Ondra Kusak.
Yes.
As soon as like Ondra is like it's time for him to do his breaks, but he's always playing something that is connected to the song we are playing. Even if it's Burn Me Beneath the Willow, if it's Old Moon, whatever the tune is, Red Haired Boy, you can always, like, you can kind of, he takes you he takes the listener and his fellow musicians on a little excursion within this song.
Yes.
You know? And it's such a nice thing to play with musicians that approach it like that.
I would agree, man. Ondra, for those of you that don't know him, he's a great friend of ours, and collaborator of ours in the last couple of years, and in my opinion is one of the best European bluegrass musicians.
Absolutely.
And ambassadors of bluegrass music from the Czech Republic. He's completely mastered all of these things that we're just talking about, you know. And I think it's really cool to see, like, if we're talking about the basic way that we've described soloing in bluegrass music, Ondra is the other end of that. He's the end of that journey. If you learn to simply melodically kind of phrase things, you can do something that's so mind-blowing and creatively expressive at the other end of it if you build that foundation first.
So true. Also, something I told my students, we're working on this. I was using you and Ondra as the example that this is, because they were, it was like, isn't this like too simple thing or most? But I think, but you know what? This is exactly what I hear when Hayes is Ondra doing their breaks, Magnus, banjo Magnus, for example, and and they are way further than me on their journey, using skeleton melodies, using, melodic improvisation in this way. But, but this is where we enter. Look, I mean, we enter at this, the very first step of the journey, sort of, and eventually it will take us there, so that it will sound like Ondra, Hayes, Adam Steffi, well, you name it.
Yeah.
So it's,
I think that's a great analogy to use, right?
And really, so to break it down, when I'm saying like the first step here, just repeating what we said, learn to sing the melody. It's not about singing it out perfectly or anything, but it's about internalizing the melody, so you know actually. And I guess I'm not specifically talking about a vocal tune, but you can use the same approach for fiddle tune also. But let's say it's a vocal tune, you learn it. Probably best way is also learning the lyrics. It might make it easier for you to even get the melody down. Then sit down with your instrument in hands, with your mandolin. Try to just by trial and error, find the melody. How do you actually can bring that out on the mandolin? When you got that down, try to like make a rhythmic, rhythmic approach to that melody, using like a shuffle rhythm, something like that. So basically subdividing.
Yeah.
Right there, you got the shuffle break, which is a perfect like entry point for the next jam session.
Yeah. And I love what maybe one of your students said, like, isn't this too simple? But if you go into a jam session and play that instead of just a bunch of licks strung together, everyone in the jam's going to be like, wow, that guy can play bluegrass.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. That's so true. And not only, I mean, it's also every song becomes sort of fun to play because every song has something unique to tell.
Yes.
If it's not only a bunch of licks put together, like maybe.
I even had a student say that. He was like, I feel like I just play the same break over and over again because he's just playing the changes.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just play the changes in bluegrass, it's all going to sound the same because the changes they're not that different from song to song, you know?
True. It's like the one, the 4, and the 5 over and over. Well, in different changes.
Yeah. That's great.
I guess we're simplifying things a little bit or generalizing. But you get the point. I think listeners can see. And I'm very inspired for this myself to kind of move further on this journey, and eager also to share content.
Yeah.
Like highlighting this approach more and more.
I'll say this, just to brag on you a little bit for everyone listening out there. 2 years ago, Magnus kind of embarked on a bluegrass journey when we went to the Tusholke Bluegrass Festival together in Sweden. He was noticing some of these things that we're even talking about here, like the intro licks,
exactly,
the melody stuff, and it was even Andra that was the inspiration for this. So this is kind of like a full circle moment.
Yeah.
But in that time, like Magnus has, I mean, it's not like you sat down and learned 20 bluegrass tunes a week in that time, but you had that more acute, specific approach to how to take breaks. And I tell you what, folks, Magnus is a bluegrass mandolin player now. You know what I mean? Like your breaks sound extremely authentic. They're very, they sound polished and pro because you had that framework in your mind, man. So it's really inspiring to see.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's been like a little bit over 2-year journey for me. When I decided I'm going to learn how to play bluegrass mandolin, and it's starting to come together now. So and it's well, to be totally honest, I almost practiced bluegrass mandolin playing almost every day for in the last 2.5 years.
It sounds like it.
Even if it's so there's that. I guess that's the way to do it. There are no ways around putting in the time and effort, but it's starting to come together. Yeah, man. And of course, a lot of more things to develop. Yeah. I'm hoping like listeners can also feel inspired by this, because there are many of you out there that would have had a good time at our workshop. Because
anyone in this audience who is in the Eurozone, you need to put this festival on your list of festivals to attend and do the academy. Whether it's me and Magnus or anyone else teaching, they get top level people to come to this festival all the time. So this is one that you could definitely get a lot out of.
Yeah. Yes. Well, there's so much we could talk about.
Oh man,
from the last few weeks, but
people are going to see a lot of that stuff that we didn't get the chance to talk about, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. We've been really productive recording a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
So we got videos coming out. We got, plenty of that coming.
Lots of good content headed your way. We took the chance to sit down and book some studio time in Grenna and even at Magnus's studio before we came to the festival. So lots of content that I'm already really proud of coming out. So you guys will get the full picture later.
Well, I think so. Just letting people know, we're now, as I said, I will drop Hayes off at the airport today in Arlanda. But before that, we're also heading for Stockholm for a little bit of sightseeing.
Yeah.
We're gonna go see the Vasa Museum out on the beautiful. It's just by the water there, out at Djurgården. It's called.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have some. Well, we're not only doing music all the time.
No, exactly. We gotta, we gotta let some of those thoughts settle, right? And take in the wonderful Swedish culture that I have the opportunity to experience right now.
So a little bit of that and
a Max Burger.
Definitely.
Mandolin Secrets Podcast brought to you by Max Burger.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Hayes, for coming over here for 2 weeks.
It's too short, man. I hope it's very soon.
I can't wait until next time.
Me neither.
For everyone out there listening, if you want to find more about the podcast, you can head over to the website. It's mandolinsecrets.com/podcast. There are all episodes. Also inside the Academy, there are the video versions. Not more than that, but also a little reminder for everyone listening, a reminder for me and for Hayes. Folks, always remember, be a music maker.